All right, Tina. So how are you this morning?
I'm doing great. Happy to
Yeah.
be here. Yeah.
Where are you currently in
I am in
California?
no, Tucson, Arizona, actually.
Oh, Arizona. I love
Yeah.
Arizona. I like
Yeah.
Sedona.
Absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous weather right now too.
Okay, cool. So I think that how you got into becoming an entrepreneur is something that a lot of people can relate to. So I'd love for you to share, how did you even go from whatever you were doing before to becoming an entrepreneur? And when did that happen for you?
Well, I've been online for 19 years, so happened 19 years ago in September. But I always say I'm really an unlikely success story because I didn't come from a corporate background or anything like that. I came from scrabbling to survive background. I was on my own at 17, literally went out the bedroom window to move myself to Seattle, got myself emancipated in court, started doing clerical work, had a little tiny apartment, got married, had a bad marriage, a lot of things that a lot of us have done. And I had two children along the way, but I never really saw myself as being able to do any high achieving kind of thing. I didn't know even how to think like that because of the way I was raised and the messages I received as a kid and all of that. And so, I did some typical things like food service, cashiering, childcare, clerical work, that type of thing. Things really took a very heavy duty turn in my 40s because I'd gone through a divorce and ended up meeting someone that turned out to be my very own psychopath, honestly, truly a very evil individual. It did not appear to be so at the beginning, but this individual tried to take my life. We were living on a yacht in Seattle and had to run for my life with my children. And it was really a huge turning point in my life because we lost everything except our lives, all of our material possessions, our home, everything. Ended up living in a shelter, was homeless, all of the things. And so that was a very defining moment though, because somehow even through all of that, I knew that I had to make it count for something, that it wasn't, I've never called myself a survivor of a thing. Right. And so it was that I knew somehow someday it was going to count for something. I just didn't have any clue what that was going to be, but that was my determination. So eventually I met my amazing current husband and he kind of walked through this walk with me. Neither one of us had any money at the time, but we started actually working with ad agencies and things, doing promotional tours. There wasn't many money involved for people coming to them, but I learned how to attract people just by talking to them to what our event was and then share the information that these multi-million-dollar campaigns were doing, like Got Milk and Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. A lot of money went into the tours. And we also experimented with selling stuff face-to-face. So I became really good at demoing stuff, like I was like the ShamWow of color changing mugs, like if you remember the ShamWow guy. So I would actually demonstrate them one at a time, and we became the top sellers in the country of color changing mugs. Also became a top seller in the country of hand painted denim shirts. We didn't paint them, but I knew how to have the conversation with people. So I really learned a lot with that, all these one-on-one interactions. But it was really heavy duty work, like big setups and hauling stuff all over the country. We did get invited into the Pentagon to sell our color changing mugs three different times, sold inside the Pentagon because we had all the designs included the armed forces. We had, what was it? I'm trying to remember, 32 designs, I think it was, and then included all the divisions of the armed forces.
What would it do? It would change color when you put water.
So I demoed it with hot water, and it had a design on the side. And when the hot liquid went in the mug, then the whole design would change. And
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah. And I learned a lot about selling with that. I mean, it got so I could kind of watch somebody coming towards me and I would have a pretty good idea, because I think there's an intuitive aspect to this as well that has always run my life as well. But I would get an idea of what I thought. One, what was really funny was this guy came up, and it was a younger man, and he had a stocking cap on, and he came up and he was looking around, but I saw that he had some symbol he had a tattoo of a hummingbird. And we had a hummingbird mug that was very popular with a whole lot of hummingbirds on it. And so I was already like pouring the hot water and kind of making eye contact, mug, and he came up and he looked at it and he just smiled and he took his cap off and he shaved his head, and his whole head was covered with hummingbird tattoos.
That's crazy.
But all of these big setups and things, it got to the point of, okay, it's really difficult, because my husband's legally blind also. So we were having some challenges with all of that. So I read an article. I was like, I had an old mobile home in Yuma, Arizona, and I'm sitting there like, I got to find a way to make some money because I'm the one that's going to support us, and really we had started with zero, when we got together and got married. So I read an article about copywriting with a W. I'd never heard of it, had no idea what it was. But when I read the description of what it was, I literally broke out in a sweat. I thought, I can do this. this is what I've been doing, only now it's going to be in print. And I'd always liked words. I was always a reader as a kid. And even though I hadn't gone to college or anything, I just had an affinity for communication in this way. So I just made a decision that I was going to be the person that could do this thing. And but we didn't have any money, and I had an opportunity to go to this event that was in Maine. I'd spent a few $100s to have like a little life coaching, and I told the gal my story, the woman that was the coach, and when I told her that I had this plan that maybe I could travel, and we had an old RV at the time, so maybe I could travel and do something. She said, if you can get to Maine, I think it was like $600 for an event, and I didn't have it, And plus, we were in Arizona and she was in Maine, And she said, if you can get to my event, I'd like you to speak for 5 or 10 minutes to my group about what's happened in your life and what you're doing now. And it was like, okay. So I went out and talked to my husband, did what any sane person would do. We sold our house so that I could go.
Oh.
And so I have a very supportive husband who really believes in me. And when I told him we can sell these mugs, and that worked out, we can sell these shirts, and that worked out, it was like, okay, I believe you. And so I went down to the Thrifty Nickel, and I had a picture of our view. The one thing this old mobile home had was this amazing unobstructed view of a golf course, the mountains of Arizona. We do have mountains, and the saguaro cactus, the ones with the arms, right? And in that part of Arizona, they were actually kind of rare, not so much in Tucson, but in Yuma where we were. So I went down to the Thrifty Nickel with my picture of the view. And it was just going to be in black and white, this little newspaper thing, And I said, I want to sell my house, and can we put this image in? And they were like, don't you want a picture of the house? And I was, no, because actually what I'm going to sell is the view. And I somehow knew to sell the view, right? Because there wasn't anything special about this place with green shag carpeting, plastic sinks, the whole bit. The only thing really special about it was the view. And that's exactly how I sold it. And,
wow. That's a lesson in and of itself.
Yeah, really. There's lessons all along the way here with all of this. And so it was a Wagons East, we sold it for cash to more than anybody else was getting for their places just because of how I'd worded the ad. And I literally had someone in the driveway that was thinking about it, and someone else had an appointment and drove up, and I looked at them and said, those people are going to look at it next. And they said, we'll take it. So we had a little moment of urgency there.
That's awesome.
But I went to the event.
Technically, you kind of intuitively knew copywriting before you even went to the conference.
I did. I think so, because that's something that Ron, my husband, has often said. I don't know if you can teach exactly what you do, because this thing happens. And so now how I interpret that is things come not only from me, but through me, because I believe that there is another type of intelligence at work, a divine source, an intuitive source that operates, but we all have access to. And I think it was on triple time with me for some reason. But I went to this little event. I spoke for like 5 minutes, maybe 10. And people really reacted. There were people crying, coming up around. And I'd never done anything like this, ever. I'd never spoken to a group or anything. But one of the speakers was having an event in Las Vegas, and she had not been able to sell any tickets.
You had spoken unofficially to people selling coffee.
Right. Exactly. But not like, standing before the crowd, podium, kind of thing. And so one of the speakers was like, would you like to take a shot at writing a sales letter for me? Well, the only thing I sort of knew a little tiny bit was sales letter, online sales letter. Didn't know how to write emails, didn't know how to do anything, didn't have any tech skills, but I said, sure. And so I did it just based on some, looking online, reading a couple books, how do I put together a sales letter? But I wrote one that was good enough. It sold out her event. And so, and I only did it for a few $100s, I didn't even know, how to charge anything. That seemed okay to me at the time. Right. And from that, she invited me to her event. I met someone there, and it just kept building. And so my grand slam was about maybe 4 or 5 months into this venture. I didn't have a website yet, but I wrote a 2-page direct mail sales letter for a gentleman that was trying to sell property in Florida, not too far from you. And it was going all over the world. It's a long story about that I won't bother with right this second. But the main thing was that 2-page letter that was modeled after a Gary Halbert letter. It had a dollar attached to it. It was called the dollar letter. Brought in $4 million in 30 days, and the guy made $1 million profit, and scared the living daylights out of him. He was not prepared. He had to get business partners and stuff involved to fulfill all the thing that was happening with it, and he was absolutely shocked. So was I, But that
I'm good at this.
one thing led to another. So I just kept networking and went to an amazing event in New York City. That was my first big investment in myself. It was a $5,000 event and with Gary Bencivenga, and I met Gary Halbert there. I told him, thank you for the dollar letter idea. He invited me to his event in Florida, and it just kept going.
I didn't know that you knew him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I didn't at the time. I went up to him with my little, my letter. I didn't have a website. I didn't even have business cards. I'd printed out a page that was kind of like, really sort of like a LinkedIn about section. It was kind of like that. And I just took it with me. And so I'd hand people my page, And I not only did Gary Halbert invite me to his Florida event as his guest because he wanted to give the letter out as a bonus. He put me in his newsletter, didn't call me by name, but I have the newsletter still that he referred to me. This lady came up to me, kind of a thing. He was standing with John Carlton because they were really good buddies. And so I met them both at the same time. And instead of asking for a photo, I went up and said, can I thank you for this concept? And this is what happened with it. And so I told him the story of the dollar letter. And he just looked at me and they looked at each other and he said, you should license this. And I was like, I don't even know what that is or how to do it. I had no clue. But the thing is, I invested in myself to go to that event. And that event brought me in my first $100,000. And that turned into $500,000 in my first year as a copywriter. Wow. And that was without a website most of the year, the whole thing. Nobody knew who I was, just this nice lady from Arizona. And the other thing I'll say, I always kid, don't do the math, but I was already past 50 when I did this. And so it wasn't like, I'm 29, I'm 30, I'm starting an online business. I was just like, I'm going to be this person,
So it's possible because there's so many people that they could be 50, 55, 60. They have 25 plus or 20 years in their expertise and they're well off, but they may want to lead into something that is more purpose aligned or passion aligned or want to get out of corporate and have that active income. What would you say to that person?
Oh, I would say go for it. Absolutely. Because really, all of these things, were really just stories we tell ourselves. Oh, I can't. I'm too old. I don't know. I haven't been to college. I mean, I could have told myself all of those stories and more. And it's really making a decision. I mean, it starts with the decision and it's the being of that first, because we really have to integrate that new identity and really seriously integrate into this is who I am. And that we are changing our identity to be that person that can do that thing and get the result that we desire to have. And so I would absolutely say go for it. I don't think a person can do it all by themselves. I started investing in myself right away. That's when I went to the Gary Bencivenga event, $5,000 that I didn't have. He didn't take credit cards. I had to get the money and write a check to be able to do that. And I went with that determination and intention that I was going to really just soak up every possible thing I could get from that one event he ever did in his lifetime as one of the world's greatest copywriters. And a funny little side note, he was about the same age as me at the time, and he was wrapping up his copywriting career, his public copywriting career. He has businesses he does now, but and I was just getting started, right? And so, but I knew it was the room to be in. It was really the room where it was happening because everybody that was anybody in publishing wanted to be there because he's absolutely world famous for what he does. And it was the only time in his life he did an event like this. He had to sign a non-disclosure and all kinds of stuff, But that one event was like so pivotal for me. But you got to get training somewhere, whatever you're going to do. My advice is always find the mentor who's already doing the thing that you are wanting to do yourself. They're doing it successfully. They're actively doing that and pay whatever it takes to learn from them. And so, because that's how we compress time. That's how we accelerate the learning curve as well. And I would not have been able to do what I have done for the last 19 years if I hadn't done that for myself first. So,
yeah. And so how would you define copywriting? And then, we'll have to edit this like closer into the interview because like what exactly is a sales letter? So let's just add
right. I'll break down some of these definitions. So the way I define copywriting, and again, I didn't know what it was either, and it's not the copywriting with an R. It's not about intellectual property. This is about your marketing messaging. It's the words that you're using, and it's also the words we say to ourselves. That kind of gets into the mix as well with how our brains are working. But it's really the words that attract, persuade, educate, engage, empower. It's every aspect of selling or persuading or getting people to join with you in a common goal, a common mission. And I never use the word convincing, though. It's not convincing because when we are artful with how we create our marketing messaging, people should be able to make a decision for themselves. You should be able to move a mountain, basically, with their understanding of what this can do for them. And so this is part of the art of copywriting. And so it's literally what we're saying in videos. It could be for ghostwriting, could be when we say a sales page, we're talking about when you get online and go to a website and there's usually pretty robust messaging aspect on that page that might be making you an offer for something that you could purchase, you can invest in, you can sign up for. That's copywriting, and that's a sales letter when we're actually. It's why it's called direct response copywriting, because we want people to do something, want to move them into action with what our words are. So that's how I define it.
Most copywriters and creative entrepreneurs, from writers to artists to poets to marketers even, they are not embracing AI. So we've had about almost a year. I've almost used ChatGPT for a year now. I think I started using it in January. And how has that changed the game for you? And how do you see that evolving in the future?
Oh, it's changed it immensely. So when we first started hearing AI, I was familiar with that terminology because my son happens to have an advanced degree from MIT's Media Lab, which is artificial intelligence. Wow. So I'd been hearing that for, I don't know, 15 years or something like that. I went to the Media Lab to see what he was working on.
You're like, yeah, I've heard of
somebody else. Yeah, that's cool. But, I didn't see the relationship to me or my life, what I might be doing. And so then when ChatGPT came on the scene, there were some other things before then. And I was always just like, no, nah. It's going to be without any heart, without any soul. It's just going to be machine generated, And so I was like massively skeptical, but I'm also very curious and I'm also a lifelong learner. And so, when I first heard about ChatGPT, I thought, well, I don't know, maybe I'm not going to teach people how to write copy anymore. I mean, I actually had all of these thoughts. And so it's like, well, I got to see for myself. So I started using it too. I started dabbling with it. What does this thing do? Right. And then it was like, oh, wait a minute. Oh, it does this. And then we had the paid version. And basically, my journey has been that I went from being a skeptic to absolute evangelical about ChatGPT. I see it as such a powerful collaborator. I don't call it a tool. I don't see it that way. I see it really as a reflection of the best of ourselves when we know how to use it effectively and efficiently and to join forces with it. And so we're coming up on its birthday. I think November 30th is a happy birthday to ChatGPT. And look at what's happened at the time we're talking, what's happened just in a few months, right? I mean, we got there was kind of like this little lull during the summer, and everybody's kind of messing around with it. And then it became October brought us like, oh, look, now it can see, it can hear, it can talk. It can, this started happening. And then November 6th, wow, GPT Turbo hit the scene. I've just been fascinated with it because I have found my ways, and maybe it's because of that intuitive aspect as well, to go very, very deep with it. And also understanding that it's not replacing us. I mean, it may replace some jobs, and then it's up to people to find this other pathway of how am I going to work with this technology, because there's been a big brouhaha lately, with leadership and all that. But I absolutely do not believe it's going anywhere except onward. And it's all of a sudden it's just everywhere in our life. You can look at your emails and it's like half of them are about something to do with AI. So one of the things I love about ChatGPT is I call it the Target, the Target of AI, because it's one-stop shopping, that you clean up on aisle 7, but it's really now because we can do image generation, because we get research, because there's some plugins that help us do that even more effectively. It's got a way bigger capacity than it used to as far as being able to and take documentation or text that we might want to give it, and it can recognize images for you and describe them. But also, it's more nuanced now since they updated on November 6th, that its ability to understand, to interpret what you're actually asking for is hugely advanced. And so, the way I describe this is like when we say, well, I think I want this. So if you just said, well, would you go get gas in the Jeep? We have a Jeep, would you go get gas in the Jeep? And if somebody went down and said, sure, and they opened the back door, took the nozzle and, started putting gas in the Jeep, right? And as opposed to understanding that, what I really meant was that you're going to put it in the fuel thingy and, turn it on, and you're going to just fill the fuel tank, not the entire vehicle. And so it's like that with ChatGPT. Now it's like, oh, I get it. When you're asking for the thing, I know what you really want is this. There's a lot more of that capability. And I use it every single day. Every single day. It might be, how do I spell this word? Or it might be, I'm looking for another word that starts with D that will go in my triple, my tricolon, 3 words in a row kind of thing. It might be a really small thing, or we go very deep. I have a blueprint that I do that's really a deep, deep journey into what's possible for someone in their business. It takes about an hour and a half, and it's 14 pages of prompts that I've created to do it. So you can go very deep with it.
So, talking about whether someone is an expert that wants to build their own coaching business or become a consultant or just be their own freelancer where they can make $10,000, $20,000 a month leveraging a skill with just more freedom from home, or whether someone is a coach who is, let's say, stuck for 1 or 2 years at they're making 10K, 20, 30K a month, and they're not seeing the growth that they want to see. What are some practical ways that they could start to leverage ChatGPT in their business? I don't know if you want to go through some prompts or just talk about it strategically.
Well, we can start off with strategically, because one of the things you can do with ChatGPT then is really, really extrapolate out what would this look like. I have an idea, and one of the ChatGPT is very good at giving you really good results, even with an idea. It's garbage in, garbage out. You have to know where you want to go with it, and so that you can explain it in some way, even if it's not elegant, even if you have misspelled words. ChatGPT can look past all that and get the nuanced, this is what you're trying to accomplish. Let me help you with that. And so you can lay out an entire plan with a really hefty prompt. You can lay out an entire plan for showing me the demographics, the psychographics, the kind of audience I'd work with, KPIs, what are the financial estimates of what, modestly even, what would that look like? What might I charge for this? I mean, you can go through this whole entire array. And so, especially when you go in a particular order, think of what you get from ChatGPT as an architecture. It's like the building blocks, right? And so we're building the blocks of information that we are going to join together into one cohesive message. It isn't just hit the button and go do your nails and some amazing thing will happen with ChatGPT. We need to lead the way with that. And so, or you need someone to help you understand how to do that. Because one of the things that I want people to understand is how to really start creating their own prompts. This isn't, 101 prompts in a can, for ChatGPT. You're going to get very superficial output. You're not going to get the quality because you're not putting the depth of quality into the prompt in the first place. And this is where a foundation and what makes effective copy, what's effective marketing strategy. We have to have that foundation also, because if you don't know what you're looking for, you don't know what to ask, you're not going to really get the optimum results you could get. And so even if you don't want to be a copywriter yourself, or you don't want to write copy for clients, getting that basic foundation, like, for example, all aspects of a funnel, a marketing funnel. What do I say here? What do I say there? How does it all join together? How do I think of it? What's the strategy? And then using ChatGPT every step of the way, we can end up with copy. I got to say it, I've been doing this for 19 years. I've made millions of dollars for my clients, and I've brought in that kind of revenue for myself over the course of 19 years. It can do better than even some of us that are very experienced copywriters sometimes with aspects of it, because it'll bring in an idea maybe we hadn't thought of, that we're so close to it. And so I'll be the first to say it does an amazing job, So,
do you want to show some prompts or no?
I could. I mean, I could show you an example. What I'm going to show you right now, this is just a made-up person, so I want to make sure that everyone's clear on that. This isn't an actual client. I did this as a prototype to be able to show how this would work. And so one of the things that I depend on is my own brain for coming up with prompts, though I do have kind of frameworks for them as well. But I want to just give you an example of how any kind of profession, this could be applied to any kind of niche market. So one of the things ChatGPT likes, that you might notice right here, is being assigned a role. So it knows kind of the tone we're looking for, where we're going with that. So on this prompt, I said, today you're an experienced marketing expert who specializes in transitional strategies for corporate clients and are assisting me with a specific strategy. I told it to ignore my custom instructions because I didn't want it to answer as if it were speaking to me. And custom instructions is something that we can have set up in our ChatGPT accounts. I create a basic first level profile, and I made up a person for Sarah, a corporate HR manager who is 48 years old, has been in her job for a high level Fortune 500 for 15 years, does excellent work, but is secretly feeling stifled, like she has hit the upper income limits, is working way too many hours each week. She's a single parent with a teenager and a preteen at home, is feeling the call to be more present with them, but also wants to work less, make more money. bit nervous, feels pulled towards creating something for herself. So basically, I made up a little story about my pretend person, Sarah, to give us a client avatar. And so this is something you could do for any client that you're working with, or you could do it for yourself. And so ChatGPT gave us a first level for Sarah, giving the description that I gave it in the prompt, her current professional status, her personal life. So this is how you could also create an avatar for someone that, or a demographic or psychographic you might be marketing to. You could use a similar type of prompt just to get this kind of overview of who this person would be. And a lot of times ChatGPT will assign them a name and then start referring to them as your persona as you're doing this. And so the challenges, again, are being reiterated here: limited time, nervousness, and it's clear that she's at a tipping point. So now I ask for, give me the transferable skills based on the career in corporate HR. Now, I just want to make it clear, I know nothing about a career in corporate HR. That's not an area of my expertise. So I'm literally asking ChatGPT to spell it out for me here. And so here's transferable skills, communication skills. I won't read all the bullet points here just for the sake of time, but we have like a nice organization, because this is something I've asked ChatGPT to do for me, is bold things and put them in bulleted form and make nice outlines for me. This is something I've communicated in my instructions to it. So this is what we're getting: communication skills, people management, strategic thinking, negotiation skills, data analysis, problem solving, emotional intelligence, project management. And so these are all transferable skills to go into, and this is something a person can do for themselves, of what do I have that I could transfer into being more entrepreneurial and have my own business? Because a lot of times we're so close to our own stuff, we don't even see. We can't see anymore where our strengths are. So let ChatGPT help you with that. And again, I'm going to emphasize this is the paid version. ChatGPT Plus is what I highly recommend people are using. So given her skill set, now we're looking at what could happen with this: conflict resolution training for remote teams. And ChatGPT is breaking down the market demand, the unique selling proposition, the USP, revenue streams from online courses, workshops, one-on-one consulting, licensing our course. This is the kind of work I do with my clients, of how we work through what's possible for them with creating their offers. So second is onboarding automation consulting for startups. So we have market demand, unique selling proposition, revenue streams. 3, career transition coaching for women over 40. I actually have someone in my program who's doing exactly that right now, based on her 20 years experience in corporate. Unique selling proposition, revenue streams. And I said, this is great. It sounds promising. Yeah, we're having a little conversation. Now I asked for a SWOT analysis for each of the 3 entrepreneurial niche market possibilities, these 3 that it gave me. So here's our SWOT: strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We go through getting that analysis. See how we're compressing time by doing something like this, and all the way to our career transition coaching, and what the weaknesses, the opportunities, the threats, et cetera. And so then I asked for, with that, based on this experience, what synergies that could allow her to blend more than one of these paths from multiple income streams, not just have one source of income. And here we go: conflict resolution training for remote teams, and the income potential, $5,000 to $20,000, depending on the scale. I think Sarah ought to take a look at that one, right? Onboarding automation consulting for startups with our potential $3,000 to $7,000. Career transition coaching for women over 40 could range from $500 to $2,000 for a coaching session. Group workshops could be 1 to 3. I actually think that's on the low side, but actually ChatGPT is usually pretty conservative with some of these things. So you can, you don't have to take everything as gospel that ChatGPT tells you, but it's absolutely a conversation starter, a creativity catalyst for you. Synergies and multiple income streams, content crossover, network leverage, resource maximization, software solutions. I think that was the end of that one, as far as just kind of doing a prototype, how that would work.
Anyone could do that. Yeah, exactly. That was really valuable. I mean, people pay thousands of dollars just for even that level of clarity sometimes, in terms of being able to analyze, okay, what are my top 3 transferable skills, and which one should I leverage to build the business that I want?
And then your messaging on every step of the way, ChatGPT can help with this, right? And so if you want to create this overarching offer that you're going to have in your business, you can do that in conjunction with marketing strategy, copywriting skill, ChatGPT. It's a real collaboration. This is why I say it's a reflection of the best of ourselves when we go to this depth with ChatGPT, and we can course correct as we go. We say, no, actually that one doesn't really resonate, but what about this? And so, like, when I'm critiquing copy with the people in my mentoring program, I've now coined myself as ChatGPTina, because I collaborate with ChatGPT to do the actual critiques. And I can do a critique really fast, but now with ChatGPT and me, it's like we go so far. I always tell them, like, fasten your seatbelt, because you think you're just getting this one little piece analyzed and critiqued for you, but we're actually going to explore it, because I just started thinking about, well, what else could we be talking about with this? Where else could they go with this? What other concepts and ideas do I have that I say, hey, ChatGPT, what do you think about this idea? And it's like, good point, Tina. And away we go into that next level. So it's really fun, actually, to do all of this. And I feel like it's such a valuable tool for anybody in their business. And, I've trained a lot of people to be copywriters, and there's some that I've heard along the way now go, oh, I am never, ever going to use ChatGPT. It's somehow a cheat scenario, or it's some kind of less than noble pursuit. But I'm telling you, I really believe that is entirely wrong, the way to think about it, because when you see it as expanding what you do, opening up new portals to understanding what's possible for you, it's not a cheat. It's smart. It's strategic. It's compressing time. Research that could take us weeks to do about our business, or an idea that we have for our business, can be done like minutes to hours with ChatGPT. It's amazing the difference that it makes.
I think it's a reflection of how much the person really values time. And, that's a different conversation. But if, it goes back to an expert that wants to become an entrepreneur, or a coach that's stuck and wants to 3x, 5x, 10x with leveraging this collaborator. I know that you have a mentoring program. So what are the things that you help your clients with when it comes to ChatGPT? Because copywriting to me is a medium that pervades, something like this strategy, right? So even figuring out what it is that you're going to build a business on, the idea, to creating the actual offer, to, again, strategy on how you're going to sell that offer, to landing page, to emails, curriculum development. Like, there's no place in business where copywriting doesn't have its place. So what parts of the business do you help your clients with?
All of the above. So basically, we go through, well, what's a funnel? So because we're talking about automations, this is an important part of, should be an important part of any business that wants to not, that whole thing of, I'm going to make money while I sleep. Well, you actually can when you have automations. And I'm not talking about any specific program. It could be Kartra, it could be ClickFunnels, could be Kajabi. It's really more about the structure of a funnel. What does that mean? What does that look like? What's the strategy of it? What's the mindset that goes with that, right? And so we need to understand those strategies. We need to understand the psychology of what our marketing message is, how we are constructing the words, the copywriting, basically. And it might be for video scripts. It might be for emails. It might be for the landing page or the opt-in, when someone's giving a name and email address, and permission to continue to hear from you. So there's all that kind of the nuts and bolts part. But then there's also the mindset part of, where are those limiting beliefs? Where are the old stories we're telling ourselves that we're staying stuck in the past? And so our present doesn't ever really advance to what our future could be, what we want to create for ourselves, and how do we bring that all together? And so we definitely explore all of those things, as well as kind of the intuitive universal intelligence, divine intelligence, however a person wants to refer to that for themselves, but that we do have inner knowledge that we can tap into. It almost gets into epigenetics of what's kind of baked into our DNA from previous generations. That's a wisdom that can carry forth and that we can tap into when it comes to how we are creating our programs, how we're communicating, how we're dealing with clients. But overarching over all of this is ChatGPT. And so now everything I teach is paralleled with, here's the example of prompts that we're going to use. I have 100-page prompt library that goes with my mentoring program, because I designed them all specifically for how you're going to write each of those pieces. Now, when I first started this, I thought, well, maybe, is it a cheat? Are they not going to learn how to write really effectively? But what I found is exactly the opposite. It's like we make these quantum leaps into, oh, now I get it, because I'm showing them, along with ChatGPT and me, well, I'm showing them exactly, here's what's missing. Here's what you need to do to replace that. Here's why. Here's the strategy of it. And here's specific examples of it based with working with ChatGPT that then is very, very aligned with their messaging. And so one of the things that happens is that we just, through the mentoring process, we explore more deeply, because again, we often overlook or neglect or just kind of have blinders on when it comes to our own zones of genius, really our unique callings. And so I help people unearth that. I refer to it as I see around corners and through walls, kind of a thing, because I just have a feel for it that I can't really explain outside of intuitive, gifted with it, that I can. It's not unusual for me to say something as an example, and they go, "That's exactly the thing," or "That's how did you know that?" That kind of stuff. That happens too. It happened yesterday on my coaching call. And so I help people peel back those layers of self-limitation or lack of foresight, and really a lack of valuing what they actually have, and start to reposition and redefine their way of seeing that part of themselves. Because we talk about terms in marketing like unique mechanism is one, or what is the special thing, how your thing works, how your coaching program works, how it's delivered. And really the ultimate unique mechanism is you. It's each of us. It's each individual. And our voice, our heart, our soul, how we bring that forward and meaningful strides in our business for greater impact and greater personal satisfaction. I've worked with people that have made a lot of money and they either don't have any to actually show for it. There's revenue, but there's not profitability, or they're really not happy. It's like, I'm making all this money and I don't really care, or I'm sick of these people I'm working with. I don't really like my audience, And so how do we fix that? How do we transition into something that does have meaning to you, that you grow with, and is really more legacy as far as what you have done in your business and the people that you've affected? And it's not always about the dollar signs. It's also about your own inner journey. So that's all kind of wrapped up in a big giant package. That's what we do. That's what we do in my mentoring program, because one of my greatest rewards is when someone says, "You've changed my life. You've changed my life."
I can resonate with that. How can someone, they're interested, they resonated with what you shared today, from your story to the mindset piece to a little bit of the tip of the iceberg strategies with ChatGPT, how do they reach out to you, and how would they, find out more information about the mentorship program?
Like, actually DM me. I'm on all social media as the Tina Lorenz. And I had to add the in front because I'm the Tina Lorenz. So you can find me that way on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, all the places. TinaLorenz.com is one of my sites, but my new site is ChatGPTina.ai because I couldn't resist. Had to get that URL. And that one is really focused a lot more on the business building aspect and really it's just having a conversation. It can be done through messaging. We can certainly book a call and just see, is there something I can help you with? Does it feel like a good fit for both of us? Because that's an important aspect of it as well.
That's amazing. If last question, fun question for today. If Gary Halbert would get a hold of ChatGPT, what do you think he would do? Like, how big would you think he would get?
You mean what he would have done with it?
Yeah.
Oh, monstrous. I think so. I think he was smart enough. He just departed this world way too early. He was only in his early 60s. So I was really, really fortunate to get to meet him and interact with him. And he's a character. I say is, but he was a character. He's definitely one of a kind. And I think he would have found his own one of a kind way to leverage the power of ChatGPT, but still very much be Gary Halbert. Now, a lot of people don't know his newsletter was written by his secretary for years. He had another voice, and it was hers representing him. And that's one of the things, that's one of the magical arts of writing great copy, is that you can become that person only sometimes even better. Like when a client says, "Gee, that's me only better," then it's like, yes, that where you're bringing in this kind of extra flavor to that person's actual voice. And by the way, you can train ChatGPT to emulate your voice in how you write and your copy and all of those things. But I think he would have had a really good time with it. And when one of his famous things was his Kota Arms sales letter, and he literally was selling Kota Arms for people's families, put on a frame on the wall, looked like shields and names and whatever. And it was not online at that point. It was direct mail. And one of his stories of where he lived in a smaller town, somewhere in Florida, I believe, the bank had to have a whole second floor just for the incoming bags of correspondence with money for him for buying Kota Arms. It was so successful that the bank had to have a special room just to process his order. So I'm pretty sure he would have done something even bigger with ChatGPT. He's probably sitting up there laughing right now.
I love it. This is great.